leveled off, but soon the plane was barely more than 50 feet above the ground. Spina looked out the window in the Dumbo's side blister and saw the ice cap rushing toward them. He and Bess thought they were about to crash, ending their ordeal and their lives in the cruelest possible way. Harold Larson, the Dumbo's radio man, saw the survivors' white-knuckled distress. He patted them on the backs and told them everything would be fine, whether he believed it or not. No one was comforting anyone in the cockpit. Fearing disaster, Dunlop resolved to restart the damaged engine to gain altitude. It was a risky move. If the engine exploded, they'd be done for. But if they didn't want to crash, they needed its power, even briefly. Dunlop restored power to the engine. It strained and complained, but it held together. With both propellers spinning, Dunlop pulled back hard and got the Dumbo's nose pointing upward. But now he faced a new obstacle, the mountains that guarded Greenland's coastline. Dunlop demanded that the plane continue to climb, hoping to gain enough altitude while both engines worked to clear the highest peaks. In the cabin, the passengers watched silently through the windows as the mountains approached. As Dunlop struggled, the instrument panel before him displayed a terrifying sight. The cylinder head temperature gauge for the damaged right engine was deep in the red, far past the danger zone. Leaking oil and pushed beyond its limit, it threatened to catch fire and explode. With no other choice, Dunlop continued to climb. The Dumbo rose, and the jagged mountains passed beneath them. When Dunlop felt confident that they'd cleared the peaks, he shut down the damaged engine and began to lose altitude. He pointed the plane east toward the water, in case they had to employ the seaplane's buoyant qualities. That move reflected Dunlop's newest worry. Using the second engine for part of the flight hadn't been part of Balkan's calculations. Now they were nearly out of fuel. Listening to the crew's conversations over a headset, Monteverdi heard Dunlop ask the flight engineer how much fuel remained. The disturbing answer was about 120 gallons. The Dumbo was burning 73 gallons of fuel an hour and was still more than an hour from Blue East 2. Monteverdi could do the math. Based on their distance and fuel consumption rate, they'd have perhaps 30 gallons to spare. For a plane with a fuel capacity of almost 1,500 gallons, that translated as a teacup of water to sustain a thirsty elephant. A strong headwind could suck the Dumbo dry. For the next hour, Dunlop tried every trick in his pilot's bag. Yet nothing could prevent the plane from losing altitude. From his desk outside the cockpit, radio man Harold Larson called Blue East 2 to say that the Dumbo might not make it. Without Pappy Turner's B-17 as an escort, no one would know where it went down. The base answered that it would send a news spotter plane, and soon a twin-engine Beechcraft AT-7 appeared alongside the Dumbo. Somehow, Dunlop kept the air beneath his wings. About 5 minutes from the base, he spotted the mouth of the fjord leading to Blue East 2. Dunlop asked again about fuel. The engineer told him that the gauges were empty. Dunlop faced a choice upon which all their lives depended. He could aim toward the fjord for a controlled water landing, or he could go for broke. Dunlop chose the latter. He'd fly toward the base until the last fumes were gone and the lone engine quit. Then he'd glide the rest of the way and make what pilots call a dead stick landing. Dunlop told everyone aboard the Dumbo that if they heard the remaining engine sputter out, they should prepare for a crash. The men in the cabin piled bags and equipment against the hard metal bulkheads to soften the blow. They sat together with their backs against the cushioning material and braced for impact. As the Dumbo lost altitude, Dunlop lined up for his one shot at an approach. Now he discovered yet another problem. The dead right engine controlled the hydraulic pump for the landing gear. Using a hand crank, his crew lowered the main wheels manually, but they had no manual control for the nose wheel. Dunlop would have to bring the Dumbo down onto a hard runway on its snout. This was the very danger the plane's manufacturer had expressed 2 months earlier in the message to Balkan. Too much pressure on landing might collapse the forward bulkhead. But with no fuel and a dead engine, Dunlop had no choice. He touched down with the plane's main wheels. Dunlop fought to keep the nose up and away from the landing strip, without raising it too high and bouncing the tail on the ground. Within seconds, he began to run out of runway. Dunlop eased down the Dumbo's nose to use it as a brake. The maneuver had to be handled just right, fast enough to stop, but not so fast and hard that he'd break the plane in two. When the nose touched down, Dumbo made a sharp turn, veering directly toward Pappy Turner's B-17, which happened to be parked at the far end of the runway. Dunlop braked as hard as he could. The men in the Dumbo braced for impact. Turner's bomber loomed ahead. The two planes, one in motion, one a stationary target, both of them committed to saving the PN-9E crew, closed to 50 feet. Then 40, 30. 15 feet from Turner's B-17, the Dumbo skidded to a stop. The plane carrying the last three survivors of the wrecked PN-9E balanced motionless on its nose with its rear end high. The Dumbo looked as though it was taking a deep, well-deserved bow. The base at Blue East 2 emptied to greet them. The survivors grabbed handfuls of dirt from the runway to celebrate their deliverance from ice-cap purgatory. If they had continued their matchstick calendars to the last day, the top row would have displayed 4 sticks, the bottom row 6. They'd been on the ice from November 9, 1942 to April 6, 1943, 148 days. Armand Monteverdi, Alfred Clint Best, and Paul Spina joined Lloyd Poirier, Alexander Tucciaroni, Harry Spencer, and William Bill O'Hara as PN-9E crash survivors rescued from the glacier beyond the Koji Bay Fjord. The 5 C-53 crewmen they'd hoped to find remained lost. Also left behind were PN-9E flyers Lauren Lolly Howarth and Clarence Weedle, and would-be rescuers John Pritchard Jr., Benjamin Bottoms, and Max Demarest. Some 45 years later, a fully recovered Clint Best told his grandchildren about the crash, the bitter cold, the deprivation, and the fear. He explained how the hardships were offset by the caring he'd felt from his friends. Best left out the worst parts, so as not to upset the children, but he did mention his bouts of dementia. Above all, Best marveled at the efforts made to save him and his crewmates. Money was never an object, he said. If there was someone out there that needed rescuing, the Air Force went out to the rescue, Best told his family. They never give up. They never gave up on us. Despite the passage of time and the wisdom of age, Best struggled to describe how it felt to have survived. As I've gone on through the years, he said, it's hard to figure out how you can be with 8 other people and one falls into a crevasse and disappears. It's why me, Lord. In this case, it's why him. And the radio man goes after a plane and he gets killed. And the lieutenant comes down on the motor sled to rescue you and he gets killed. You wonder why it's all of them. Finally, Best settled on divine intervention. I figured God must have had some plan in this world, that he let me, along with the others, remain. Chapter 24. Down to the Wire. August 2012. The dome tent is alive with excitement about the anomaly at BW1 as we crowd together for breakfast on Tuesday, August 28th. Between sips of coffee, Yana happily displays a radar image on her laptop. She explains that it shows small hyperbolas near the glacier surface that are unmistakably a crevasse, and bigger and more dramatic hyperbolas deep in the ice that suggest a large UFO, an unidentified frozen object. The mood is light, and Alberto gets laughs by teasing Bill about the single L in his name. What's Bill short for? Bill? But enthusiasm leaches from the dome when Steve announces that a half-dozen team members must return to Kulusuk aboard the helicopter that's due later today to airlift the Hatsi to BW1. The decision to begin demobilizing from the glacier comes jointly from the Coast Guard in North-South Poland and takes the form of a plan agreed to by Jim, Rob, Lou, and Steve. Although the weather remains cold and clear at Koji Bay, a major storm is headed our way. Multiple helicopter trips will be required to get everyone and our equipment back to Kulusuk. If flights are canceled, some or all of us might be trapped here in dangerous conditions. Bill and Alberto volunteer to leave to avoid canceling other obligations, but no one else wants to miss the hole-melting, camera-dropping finale. Steve clears his throat and reveals the names of the soon-to-depart. So, going out today are myself, Terry, Ryan, Alberto, Michelle, and Bill, okay? Everybody else will be remaining, and the remaining group will figure out the lifts for tomorrow and Thursday. Several people object on Michelle's behalf. knowing how much she wants to remain in camp. Steve wavers, asking Jim if he knows which Air Greenland helicopter is coming and whether we might fill it with more equipment and fewer people. Jim wants to stick to the plan they've made before entering the dome. We need to get people off the ice. That has to happen, he says. Steve finds a way to commiserate with the rank and file, yet also support the team leader's decision. Every one of us wants to stay. Unfortunately, 6 of us have to go back. Steve's mixed message and his inquiry to Jim about fewer people leaving create an opening, and Michelle gains more voices of support. Frank, however, is silent, not wanting his relationship with Michelle to be seen as coloring his judgment as safety leader. Faced with more rumblings on Michelle's behalf, Steve throws up his hands. I'm not making a command decision on this one. That sets off Rob, who is second in command of the Coast Guard contingent, occupies a parallel position to Steve's on North-South Polar. You're the command, Rob tells Steve. That's the job. You want me to make it? The tent goes silent until Bill tells Steve what everyone is thinking. The gauntlet's thrown on the ground there, bud. Lou steps into the fray, again raising the idea of sending gear before people. Discussion moves to the agenda for the day, then circles back to the helicopter. Ultimately, Lou expresses support for the original plan. Both he and Jim say they believe that the 6 people Steve named should be the first to leave. Steve seems distracted, agitated by the public conflict with Rob about command. He detours the discussion to describe how the campsite should be broken down and to list tasks needing completion before the helicopter arrives. Finally, he musters himself to declare who stays and who goes. Michelle, Steve says, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm useful, she tells him, listing her skills in mountaineering, glacier climbing, medical care, and elsewhere. Well, you know what, Steve says, reversing field. I'm going to make the command decision. Rob, you're going. Blindsided by Steve's switch and frustrated by a week of leadership he finds lacking, Rob can't restrain himself. See how that felt? Feel good? He asks Steve mockingly. That's what it feels like. Command. Oh really? Thank you, Steve shoots back. Thanks for telling me what command feels like. Ever have a combat command? You were saying you didn't want to make a command decision, Rob answers. That's your job. The glow is off the dome, and tension is now the order of the day. Before the